at that time were, I would say the morale was a bit low. And so by going in there and really kind of involving them and, asking them what they needed, really truly understanding what their needs were, if it was just a new step ladder, or if it was, just somebody to hear, to listen to them as far as what would make their lives better day to day, and then following up. So, we took down lists of things to order. We worked with the area supervisors and we actually got it done. It was a flavor of the same thing that I saw when I was in QC. And I said to my team, I said, let's get rid of those old chairs. They're broken. I mean, there's no reason why we need to put a piece of tape on the broken chair to tell everybody that it's broken and don't sit in it. Like, let's just replace it. It sounds so simple, but honestly, like these are the things that really kind of, make or break somebody's day, or just like really make you feel either good or bad about where you work. So I think really listening to people and backing up the words with action just goes such a long way.
Hey everybody, I'm Elisabeth Swan.
And I'm Tracy O'Rourke, and we're from the Just in Time Cafe. Welcome to our podcast. At the cafe, we wrestle with tough questions, talk to groundbreakers, discuss great books, and get insights from our Lean Six Sigma practitioners who are making a difference in the world.
We let you in on helpful apps, bring you the news, and challenge the status quo so you can build your problem-solving muscles.
So Elisabeth, what is on the cafe menu?
I'm so glad you asked, Tracy. So today's highlight is our interview with Tracy Minutolo, who heads operational excellence at the technology health company Hologic. And we'll find out how Tracy morphed from a microbiologist into a Lean Six Sigma black belt. For hot apps, we'll give our take on a serious rival for ChatGPT, or a perfect companion for Google, or is it both? And then we'll dig into a question that came up recently about our human negativity bias. Is it a force for good or evil? In the meantime, fill that mug, get comfy, let's roll.
Up next is hot apps.
Yep, today's app is Perplexity. A friend told me about this one recently, and he thought it was going to replace Google, but then he decided it was more of a companion. And for me, it seems like a more sophisticated rival for ChatGPT, whereas, Google serves up a list of links in order of, I'm going to assume, popularity. Perplexity will answer a question the way ChatGPT does, but it'll provide you with links it used to form its, opinion, right? It serves like, it's delivering like this mini term paper with numbered citations. Tracy, what's your take on Perplexity?
Well, I tried Perplexity because you asked me to for this podcast, and I was happy to do that because otherwise I may not get around to using it. So I asked Perplexity, well, what's the difference between Perplexity AI and ChatGPT? And I thought it had a great response. So basically, he was telling me kind of what you said earlier. ChatGPT is more of a general purpose conversational AI assistant focused on natural language interactions, creative writing, coding, and open-ended tasks, where Perplexity AI is designed primarily as an advanced search engine and research tool, which speaks to why you say it's a good companion for Google. And they cite information by querying the internet. So that was interesting. This is, and again, all of this was fact-based, no opinions here. And so it also mentioned that ChatGPT's knowledge comes from its training data, which has a cutoff date. So its information can become outdated over time, where Perplexity AI retrieves up-to-date information in real time by searching the internet, allowing it to provide the latest facts and data, which I think is important. So ChatGPT does not cite sources, as you had mentioned, and Perplexity AI does cite sources and answers queries, increasing transparency and credibility, which is important. And conversational abilities, I'm going to say Perplexity AI said, you know what? ChatGPT does this better. It engages in free-form conversation. It's understanding context and nuance. And I have to say, I was pretty impressed with ChatGPT when I asked it kind of funky things. Like I have a friend who is going through a divorce and she wasn't sure what to say to her husband. So we asked ChatGPT.
Wow.
And that was pretty good.
Did not see that coming.
So, but where Perplexity AI is more suited for direct question answering rather than open-ended dialogue. So in essence, ChatGPT is a versatile conversational AI focused on creativity. I think if you need some help with, what to say, maybe emotional intelligence, people like, I don't know what to say. I'm not good at that. ChatGPT might be your best friend, where Perplexity AI specializes in providing accurate, sourced information through web searches, making it a pretty powerful research tool. So I liked the comparison. It didn't take sides, and I can see now why I would want both.
I
How
love
about
how,
you, Elisabeth?
well, first of all, I just want to give you props for your meta approach here, where you asked Perplexity to do the comparison, and you were impressed with the way that it did the comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was testing it myself. I gave an example. I gave Google, ChatGPT, and Perplexity the same kind of question. And this one, I love the quote, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. And I use it in my book. And I had searched Google, back when I wrote the book, and all the first links attributed to Thomas Edison. So that's who I cited. And my colleague, Pete Pandy, is president of Pivotal Resources, and he was on my editorial board, and he pointed out that quote was actually from a woman named Kate Sanborn, who delivered us, lectures on the topic of, what is genius back in the 1890s. So this morning, I tested all three again. I asked ChatGPT, and I got Edison. I asked so Google definitely gave me Edison. I asked ChatGPT, and I got Edison. And I asked Perplexity, and it not only cited Kate Sanborn, but it gave me background on why people were citing Edison at all, right? Sort of a little nuance there. And so that was big, right? That to me was like, okay, it really is good at doing research. So the problem with a lot of search engines is that they regurgitate what's out there, right? So I've parroted misinformation before, right? I thought I had done the research, but the reality is, I'm scanning those 5 top 10 links, right? And I'm going with the majority. And after getting kind of burned, I acknowledged it myself. Now, I didn't get burned by somebody else, but I got burned by myself. I did the research and I was like, I cannot do that again. So I'm way more picky with what I assume to be true. And Perplexity, it feels like a huge leg up, right? I don't know, to me, if in terms of like just getting, what's true,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing, Elisabeth. And I agree with you. There's so much stuff out there that isn't even real, right? Like it's, so having these powerful tools, and I really like that Perplexity has the citing, because it really is helping you really say, okay, where is this coming from exactly? And it does seem like it's a mashup of Google and ChatGPT. It's indexing the internet daily, so you can ask it questions on current events or sports scores, which is pretty cool. Perplexity is available now through the web app, mobile apps, and Chrome extension. Quick searches are free, and you don't even have to create an account to start one. Perplexity Pro costs $20 a month and allows you to use more powerful AI models and conduct hundreds of pro searches per day. The Pro version attempts to understand the specifics of your question and tailor its response to your needs. Pro Search will even ask you follow-up questions to further fine-tune its responses. Not bad. And so that's all we have to say about Perplexity and ChatGPT and Google. You heard it here first.
I'm Elisabeth Swan, and you're listening to the Just in Time Cafe podcast. In a short while, you get to hear our interview with Tracy Minutolo, the Senior Manager of Operational Excellence at Hologic.
So today's question revolves around the human reality of our negativity bias. As the theory goes, Our ancestors found negative events, information, and emotions to be way more valuable than positive ones. Basically, you need to be scanning the horizon for animals and other threats in order to survive. The negativity bias formed as a result of our survival instincts. But guess what? Fast forward to our world where we're less likely to be eaten by saber-toothed tigers, and the negativity bias leaves us finding fault with each other instead of giving each other praise, acknowledgement, and credit. You just gave a talk about this, Elisabeth, didn't you?
I did. And I have to give a nod to perplexity. I used it a little bit for that, but I did because this topic, I call it the praise paradox, but it has a big impact on whether people stay in their jobs, right? Without acknowledgement, people are more likely to quit. Uh, and here's a topic I'd love to explore more. We rely on our negativity bias to find waste in a process, right? We need to uncover what's wrong so we can improve it. And then the healthcare industry is based on the negativity bias, right? Healthcare professionals, thankfully, are dedicated to finding what's wrong with us, right? And there it's still a survival technique. So we need it for continuous improvement, but it crushes the human soul to be relentlessly nitpicked. We need praise to know what we're doing right, but we're instinctively looking for what people are doing wrong. And Tracy, you're kind of a special case, but how do you manage it yourself? And then how do you help others manage this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I agree with you 100%, Elisabeth. I always felt like I looked at the world a little different than most people. And I think this kind of explains it. I did the Strength Finders because one of my clients was doing it. And so I got to do it. And my number one strength is positivity. I'm a very positive, upbeat person, even annoyingly so, I'm sure. Like, I'm sure some people don't relate to my extreme positive energy and they're like, what's wrong with her? What drug is she on? I got to be me, right? I inherited a happy gene from my dad. I grew up in that environment. I'm a knockoff of my dad's positivity. And so I'm happy about that. I actually do enjoy people. And some people enjoy dogs or their plants more than other people. And in saying this, I do see this as a real struggle for people. And so how do I help others is I kind of think about how I think about things and I try to share any structure for that. I often coach people on recognizing that they're only speaking to the things that are wrong, right? So even if you see the positive and the negative, I find that sometimes people only verbalize the negative. And it's really important. So just getting yourself to recognize that even if mentally you're doing the positive and the negative, so that's one thing. Are you only thinking about the negative and are you only verbalizing the negative? So I think some people see both, but they don't verbalize the negative. I'm sorry, the positive. They only verbalize the negative.
Yeah.
So it's this idea of providing balanced feedback, both positive and constructive when you speak. You got to speak to the good. You got to be finding that good. And it's funny because I've had this conversation with people. I go, well, I'm not good at that though. Well, you got to get good at it. Well, I don't want to be fake. I'm not asking you to be fake, right? You actually truly have to find something that is good. You can't make it up. People will see that a mile away and it'll actually have the reverse effect. You actually have to find something good and you need to be genuine about it. And you need to work on it if you're not good at it. And you need to recognize you're not good at it first, right? Like that's where everybody starts. So, and sometimes I remember I was working with a bunch of accountants and we were talking about a possible solution. So of course, the thought was, okay, we're going to throw this out there. Everybody's going to just tear it apart. And the girl that started, and it was kind of her idea, she goes, okay, so here's what we're thinking. Here's the solution that we have. Okay, so what do you guys think? And you have to start with something good. Right, so sometimes you have to remind people before they speak.
When my sister walks into a room, if I'm in the middle of a project and my husband's doing something, my oldest sister, as soon as she walks in, I go, say something nice, Annie, say something nice. Cause I know she's like, her first thing in her mind is like, you missed a spot. So yeah, no, I did, even more research about this, I did the keynote for KaiNexus just this past Tuesday morning. So it's in my mind right now. I'm focused on it. I am twice as observant of where I go first, right? So I know my human nature makes me go directly to you missed a spot. So I take that short pause before I give feedback. And I use that pause to do my homework on what I like, right? Just back to, say something nice first. So knowing that that's where my brain wants to go, I have to lead it to the positive first, right? It's a habit I'm honing and I'm working on, we've studied habit, we've talked about all the habit books, but so we're not always going to succeed, or I'm not always succeeding, but if I can give myself a little positive feedback, Tracy, I'm doing pretty good.
That's great. I'm Tracy Rourke, and you're listening to the Just in Time Cafe podcast. We host these monthly, so you can go to www.jitcafe.com and go to our podcast page.
Coming up next, it's our featured guest, Tracy Minutolo. Tracy, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about the other Tracy?
Absolutely would love to. So Tracy Minutolo is the Senior Manager of Operational Excellence at Hologic here in San Diego. She is a passionate, continuous improvement leader dedicated to enhancing processes while prioritizing people. She constantly focuses on blending operational excellence with a people-centric approach to lead transformational change. She helps foster a culture of continuous improvement, continuous learning, and innovation by empowering teams to achieve operational efficiency, greater job satisfaction, and lasting success. And also, I have to say, Tracy is also a great ambassador of our lean community here in San Diego. Hologic also offers tours, and they generously support our lean community, and we are honored to have her at the cafe.
Honored. Welcome, Tracy.
Yes, thank you so much, Tracy, for joining us at the cafe to talk about all things process improvement, primarily at Hologic and leadership. And you've been doing this for a long time, so maybe some of your reflections about the journey so far.
Sounds good. And thank you for having me.
So, Tracy, you don't have to, give us the blow by blow since high school, but what sparked your career in process improvement in your mind? What's the spark?
Yeah, well, in my mind, I think it was, it started at Hologic. That's pretty clear in my mind. I've been there for about 10 years and I've been in this role for about 6. And honestly, it was really just the experiences that I had with, the continuous improvement efforts that were already underway. So Hologic has a long history of continuous improvement and operational excellence. There was a woman named Lisa Thompson, who was our director of operational excellence for a while. And she had a Foundations of Lean course, and that really kind of lit the spark for me. So I think as much as I could get involved, I was in QC. So I did really start my career behind the bench as a microbiologist, but I took every opportunity that I could to get involved in any kind of process improvement or Kaizens or any kind of activity, anything I could kind of get involved in, I was all about it. And it really just, from then on, it was kind of sealing the deal. So,
and before we pepper you with more questions, because that's how we roll, can you just tell folks about Hologic? Kind of what are they about?
Sure. So Hologic is a global company. I mean, we are the diagnostics or molecular diagnostics division here in San Diego. San Diegans will know that our site was actually called GenProbe. So GenProbe was acquired by Hologic in about 2012 or so. And I joined in 2014, but essentially we're women's health diagnostics. A lot of our most sort of bread and butter assays are around women's health, vaginal health, that kind of thing. But we do other assays in the realms of infectious disease. So during COVID, we were extremely busy because we were making COVID tests like crazy. So,
Awesome, thank you.
And how long, you said they have a long journey in continuous improvement. How long you've been there in that role, 6 years. So how long have they been doing process improvement?
I don't have an exact year for you, but I know certainly since the early 2000s. There's been activity. We've had lean champions. We've had several iterations. I think we're probably not unlike other organizations. You kind of go through waves, and a lot of that, I know you kind of wanted to touch on the leadership support. I think, that was a big part of, kind of the ebb and flow over the years, as well as folks come in and folks leave, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So what was it about the culture that drew you into the continuous improvement aspect of it? Because you said it's sort of your first foray into continuous improvement. So what was so compelling about it for you?
I think I'm one of those folks who always looks for ways to make things better anyway. I think that's kind of part of my makeup. I think that's probably true for a lot of folks that end up in this role. But I think I also saw a component of empowerment to it. And particularly around 5S, when I learned, sort of the system and the tools, around how to empower folks. I was a supervisor of microbiology before I was in this role. And I was able to kind of take these tools back to my team and train them, and then say, let's go, let's do it. Let's make this lab, awesome. We spend so much time here. This is like the place we spend the most time other than our homes, with our families. So let's, do the things that we know need to be done. Let's buy those new chairs. We don't have to have the crappy old chairs. And, if we should have a better pipette, or we should bring things closer, we should, rearrange the workspace to better fit the workflow. Let's do it. And I think I just saw, just, it's sort of a gift, I guess, that you can give folks, it's just that kind of, yes, you have the ability, you have the power. I am telling you, like, let's take your idea and let's run with it, because you're the expert.
So have you run into, like, what kinds of challenges do you face in terms of just bringing continuous improvement to the culture, pulling people in? Like, what do you run into? What are your hurdles?
I think the biggest hurdle now is, no, I would say historically, the biggest hurdle is just we're not a small organization. I think we're roughly about, I don't know, 400 some, maybe just in operations alone. We're large. We're kind of sprawling in the building the way it's laid out. And I think it's just getting the message out to everybody and making sure everybody gets the training, and, including the leaders. I think that's been the biggest challenge, because typically, once I go into an area or somebody from my team goes into an area, we do a training. People are like, for the most part, it's like fish to water. You see folks kind of light up, and, the wheels start turning. But I think just the size, can be a challenge sometimes. And then, just being able to continue to support all of the different teams with the education and the systems. And so that's, I think for us, say it's a challenge, but it's also like it's a good problem to have, because we have a lot of interest. We have a lot of, like, great engagement from the team. So now we're really focusing hard on building, pretty watertight systems for sustaining and kind of keeping all the gains that we've made over the past several years.
Mm-hmm. So what is it that you feel like leadership is doing really well with? So there's obviously critical components, and this might be hard to answer because you're kind of in it and you're in the culture. And sometimes it's hard to recognize the most important thing because you've had it, right? But I'll ask anyway. So what do you think your leadership team is doing well to keep process improvement thriving?
Well, I have a great boss, and I think that helps. So he's the VP of operations and really has been tremendously supportive this whole way. So I think it kind of, starts at the top. But I also just think that, we've had success in small areas or smaller areas, kind of like a little pilot area. And I think that, like anything, the word gets out, and then other leaders start to see, oh, wow, this is really working. Like, this team is, tremendously improving their quality. Productivity is improving. The people seem happier. Oh, by the way, they're not calling out as much. There's a lot of things that people will start to notice because everybody talks. And so I think just, it was a matter of time before folks really started to believe in the power of this. And, that has kind of just made its way throughout the leadership. So, I don't tend to have a lot of issues or a lot of pushback when I'm, kind of going into an area to kind of say, let's maybe try this new tool, or let's look at this way or that way. Folks tend to have a great understanding at this point in time. And now it's just a matter of, like, bandwidth, resources, priorities, and let's, kind of put a plan together.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So do you have, like, a particular project or a story of an effort you were involved in that made a huge difference?
Yeah, so I think back to actually before I was in this role. So I was still in QC. And like I said, I always took the opportunities. I raised my hand for everything. So one of my peers, a supervisor in manufacturing, we didn't know this at the time, but she was kind of, the plans were to actually move her over to this new area, but she didn't know it. She just thought she was doing a 5S event. And so she recruited me to help out with that. And there were two suites in manufacturing. One was in worse shape than the other one, but they were both kind of having a rough time. And I think, for various reasons. And those areas are, like final reagent packaging and then our collection kit. So there's a lot of volume moving through these areas and they needed some attention. And so, the folks in those areas, at that time were, I would say the morale was a bit low. And so by going in there and really kind of involving them and, asking them what they needed, really truly understanding what their needs were, if it was just a new step ladder, or if it was, just somebody to hear, to listen to them as far as what would make their lives better day to day, and then following up. So, we took down lists of things to order. We worked with the area supervisors and we actually got it done. I can remember there was this massive pallet wrapper in the middle of one of the suites, and the guys were like, it doesn't really work very well, and it's taking up a lot of space. It would be amazing if we could just get rid of it. So we went to facilities, had a couple of conversations, and in time, we made it go away. The guys started to see things happening in the areas and started to feel like, okay, this is a little bit different now, and things are changing. So I think that was the start, kind of like a catalyst moment, because the employees then talk to their friends like, oh, something's changing and we're getting the things we need. So I think that really, really helps. You have to build credibility. You have to build trust, first.
And I think the way you're describing it, it's also like care for employees, right? What comes through is concern for the people, because those were things frustrating to the group, right? They were like, can we do, this thing is in the middle of the room, it's not working. And, just making their lives better, right? And giving, obviously in our world, it's, you get to change the things that impact you, but, well, hopefully, in a perfect, continuous improvement world. But, that story is just a really nice testament to caring for people, respect for people, which that's really nice.
Yeah. And listening to them as the process experts, honestly. And it was a flavor of the same thing that I saw when I was in QC. And I said to my team, I said, let's get rid of those old chairs. They're broken. I mean, there's no reason why we need to put a piece of tape on the broken chair to tell everybody that it's broken and don't sit in it. Like, let's just replace it. So I think it sounds so simple, but honestly, like, these are the things that really kind of, make or break somebody's day, or just like really make you feel either good or bad about where you work. So I think really listening to people and backing up the words with action just goes such a long way.
Mm-hmm. So you've been on the journey as the continuous improvement manager for 6 years now. What are some of your latest aha moments? Because, we have them. We're always growing. We're always trying to make the things better. We are always working on the culture puzzle. So what are some kind of ahas you've had in the recently?
Yeah, a big one in the last year, I would say, is that I need to give pieces of this away. Like, I have to let go. That's really hard sometimes because for the longest time, like, I've had a very small team. At one point during the throes of the pandemic, I was the only one in this role. So it's been hard for me to kind of like it's also my nature too. I think my number one Clifton strength is responsibility. So I'm constantly like, okay, it's up to me. I have to fix everything, But, the last year has been really, really amazing. I mean, and it started small. I had a couple of, leaders that I was working with who were standouts. They were just very engaged. They were like, what more can we do? How can I help? I have a little bit of bandwidth right now. What can I help with? Like, let's get training for these folks over here. Let me go and help with this. And so from there, it's just grown. And I think being able to like give pieces of this whole thing away, the journey away, and let another leader take it and run with it, and I can stand back and be at a town hall and, watch another leader talking about culture and our core values and, all of this. It's been so powerful. And it's been, like I said, it wasn't always easy for me, but I really feel like this is the only way. Like you have to. It's got to be owned by everybody. It's just like quality. It's like safety. It's everybody's responsibility, and everybody has a say.
That is a tough thing, I think, for leaders in general to let go. And there's a lot of reasons for it. I mean, you described, one of your strengths being responsibility. So the thought of not being responsible, right, might be your main barrier for that one. But what helps you personally let that go? Like, you just made some nice descriptions, like watching someone in a town hall stand up and be the person who's leading and all that. So clearly I hear kind of pride there. But what helps you take that step and let that stuff go?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, well, going back to the old Clifton strengths, I also have developer. So I really get a lot of joy. I derive a lot of joy out of, helping somebody or connecting somebody with an opportunity, giving somebody some coaching or just a platform, and then, supporting them. So I think previously I probably looked at it in terms of, folks that are more of the individual contributor level. I'd be working more with those folks, but now I see it as it goes in all directions. I'm working with senior leaders all the time now, and they're developing and growing too. So why not? Why does it stop in one level? It should be across the board. So I think leaning into that and just seeing it as an opportunity to support somebody else's growth and development, but also I think just the more that I'm in this space and the more that I talk to other leaders, like myself, our site in Costa Rica has had a lot of success as a really phenomenal site. Manchester as well. I think just listening to those leaders and really just what you hear is just you have to let it go. It's got to be everybody's. It cannot belong to one team and succeed.
It's true, but not everyone can act on that, right? It doesn't work to hold it all in, one place. You have to spread it if you want to grow. But I don't know, this Costa Rica place, that sounds good. Sounds like we need you down
let's
there.
go there. So that's a nice segue into that's your key reflection and aha moment. So what's on the horizon? So what are you thinking that you might change or focus on, in the next year or so with continuous improvement in terms of growing people or growing yourself or anything in particular?
Yeah. So, for the longest time, I mean, I think, again, we're probably not unlike other organizations. We've been very tool based, really focusing on tools, deploying tools. And, we've had folks, come into the business and folks who are already in the business who are more engineering minded, or, we're also scientists. So we like to see a problem, find a tool to solve, and that's, kind of been the way. But I think another big learning for me is really just, what holds everything else up and kind of what provides the foundation for everything is just our people. I think our people are really it's just, if you don't get that part of it right, nothing else will work for any length of time. You can get success, you can get, spurts and, definitely can achieve your goals in the short term. But I think in the long term, it just doesn't work. So right now we're focusing heavily on the culture. We're focusing on, defining a shared purpose, core values, and the helpful behaviors that go with the core values. So we're kind of in the throes of all this right now because we're crowdsourcing all of it. We've actually put out surveys. We've done posters on the walls to get folks to kind of write down, what does respect mean to you? What does integrity mean to you? Tell us, why are we here? What makes it so great? And we're also working on what we call site identity, or sort of the OpEx branding, because OpEx is kind of a generic term, but there's something very special about Hologic San Diego, and we want to capture the essence of that. So just getting everybody to rally around this magical thing that we have, and where we're headed and what we do for our patients is really, like, it's foundational. And if you don't pay enough attention to that, then the other things, like I say, they just in the long term are not going to sustain.
So that you paint a really gorgeous picture, and clearly your passion and dedication are shining. what I want to know is, how do people deal with failure? Like, how do people treat it themselves? Like, acknowledge it, don't acknowledge it. What does the how does how do you, how does leadership, how does the culture support people who, you can call it failure, you can call it
A
mistakes, whatever
setback.
it is. Say it again, Tracy.
A setback.
A setback. How is that dealt with?
Well, I think we're lucky. I really do feel like we're lucky in the sense that, for the most part, it's just seen as part of the journey. So, if, one thing I think learning lessons for me as well is probably around communication. So, and this doesn't just go for me, but I think a lot of our leadership has this where most of I wouldn't say failures, but I think where things don't maybe hit the mark every time is around just not having complete, clear, thorough, repeated communications. And so we're all kind of trying to improve that, by improving our systems and just trying to accept that as something that we need, an area that we need to grow in. But yeah, I think for the most part, as long as again, we're meeting our targets and we're getting product out the door and we're doing what we need to, the sort of working on the business is really we're learning, and folks do see it that way, and I feel that they see it that way, and it makes me feel like I don't know, I'm not taking risks, but sometimes it feels like I'm doing a thing that I thought was maybe a harebrained idea. I throw it out there and somebody's like, yes, let's do that. And, we have
Like,
a lot of fun.
how about not labeling this chair broken, but just getting rid of it?
Exactly.
I love that. Do we really have to label that? Can't we just remove it?
Yeah. So full of information. I sometimes wish our podcasts were an hour long, but they're not. What didn't we ask you that you'd like to share with our audience,
Oh, wow.
if anything?
Well, yeah, the other thing I realize is that if you don't have a basic level of, I would just lean for lack of a better term, but yeah, the tools do matter, on a foundational level as well. So it's not like we're focusing on culture at the expense of other things. But I think what we've realized as well is just that we all need to be speaking a common language. You can't just have like, yellow belts and green belts and black belts, kind of working in isolation in different parts of the org. We need to have a foundational layer of kind of education and understanding from everybody. And we have a number of temps as well. And so we're not able to put temps through the certification process. So we were kind of in a position where we needed to create something in-house anyway. So that's one of the things that I'm super excited about right now is we're working on a lean boot camp that everybody will have access to. So I think just the power of getting everybody to speak the same language is really, really important as well.
Nice. That's great.
Uh-huh.
Well, that is awesome. Thank you for sharing that and for coming on the show and spreading such positive message. It's great.
Thank you for
So
having me.
yeah, and what's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they were interested?
LinkedIn is probably the best. I'm probably the only Minutolo. Well, I might not be there, maybe in Italy, but Tracy Minutolo. So you can find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I like your name is so fascinating, but it's Tracy with an E before the Y, unlike this Tracy here. And then it's Minu, Minu, Tolo, Tolo.
That's right.
So yeah, seek Tracy out. She's very generous with her knowledge and past and ideas. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to the cafe, Tracy. We'll leave you a link to register for our June 27th webinar, Rich Data, Poor Data, Elevating Your Data Quality with guest host, Master Black Belt, Amitha Sherwood. Does your data leave you at risk of making faulty decisions? Most of us are using data to determine which problems are truly problems, where to spend precious resources, the best product offerings, critical policy making, and beyond. With the increased ability to capture and store large amounts of data, businesses, hospitals, government institutions, and many others rely on big data. And guess what? You better know what to do with it.
And have you registered for the big reveal? Tracy's got a brand new rap spoof lean video, and it's coming out August 1. Check the links, get your tickets to 5S Baby. Stay tuned for all the news by joining our community here at the Just in Time Cafe. Thanks for joining me and Tracy. You are our favorite things about the Just in Time Cafe. We look forward to being your lifelong learning partners.
Join us every month for your jolt of lean caffeine.
Oh, yeah.